Welcome to the annual membership meeting for both ACRP and the Academy of Clinical Research Professionals. My name is Michael Causey. I'm the editor-in-chief here and the moderator of today's session. We have a great lineup of speakers and a packed agenda showing how your membership association is working for you. Today's slide deck will be available to you after the session, and we've also reserved about 15 minutes of time at the end for questions and answers, so we're going to have a really good Q&A session. Please type your questions into the Q&A function throughout the session. You should see it there on your screen, and I will be receiving them as we go along. We'll get to as many as possible, and we'll work to get answers from the chair or executive director to your questions. If we run out of time here today, we'll be sure to reach out to you individually after and about your question and address it that way if we do run out of time. You may pose your questions anonymously or add your name above your question. Now I'd like to turn things over to Paul Evans, who's the chair of ACRP's Board of Trustees and a member of ACRP's board since 2017. Paul is also president and CEO of Velocity Clinical Research in Durham, North Carolina, as the sign behind him in just a second is going to tell you. Paul's going to introduce our speakers and kick things off. Paul, the virtual floor is all yours.
Well, thank you very much, Michael, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I'd like to welcome all of our members and Academy certificates to this virtual meeting. This is the first meeting we've had since we were all together in Nashville in April 19. There was a little minor issue called COVID-19 that's got in the way of us ever since then. So it's a pleasure to welcome you all to this virtual meeting. And I'm very pleased to say we've had well over 250 people register for this meeting. So maybe some good comes of some bad, and maybe we now understand how to reach more of the membership with this annual meeting in future. So you're all very welcome. And let me introduce our speakers that we have today. Other than myself, you'll also hear from Barbara Sleiby, the chair of the Academy Board. You'll hear from Dave Morin, our treasurer, from Erica Stevens, our vice chair, and therefore next year's chair, and of course, our executive director, who most of you know, in Jim Cremidis. So let's move on to the agenda and take you through what we're going to cover today. I'm going to give you an update on the progress we've made this year as an association. And followed by that, Barbara will talk more specifically about the Academy and the progress the Academy's made. Then Dave Morin will present the financial report in a challenging year, again with COVID, before Erica and Jim talk about what the future holds for our association. As Michael has said, we will leave time for questions, and if we don't get to them, we apologize, but we will make sure we answer everybody's questions, even if it's only in writing after this meeting. So let's move on and remind ourselves, and I think this is really important, remind ourselves about what the mission of our association is. It's been an exceptional year. You can't get away from that fact. And we as an association, therefore, have never been more relevant. The focus on COVID-19 and the drive for vaccines and treatments for that disease means that we're very much the focus of much public attention. So now more than ever, ACRP is highly relevant to what's going on in the world. So let me just, before I move on to the highlights, give my thanks to the ACRP board. This is, of course, a group of volunteers who do this on top of the day job, and I have to say that this is a group that I am honored and privileged to work with, and I'm always thoroughly impressed with every time we get together. So thank you for your service, the ABOT members that you have as members elected. So let's move on to the highlights then. Let's get things moving for real. So these are some of the things that we've achieved this year that we're particularly proud of. And the first of these is the enhanced training and development tools. And if you haven't already looked at the simulation and training tools now available through our collaboration with Proficiency, I thoroughly recommend them. Go and take a look at those. It's always very challenging to get online tools that keep people engaged. And I think these do a really good job. But I was also very pleased that this year we were able to launch the entry-level knowledge assessment. As a frequent attendee of chapter meetings, it strikes me very often how many people turn up at our meetings trying to get into this industry and asking the obvious question: how do I get in? How do I demonstrate that I have knowledge in this industry? And that's what our entry-level knowledge assessment seeks to achieve, so that employers can have some confidence that the people they're hiring who've been through this assessment do genuinely have skills and knowledge that will allow them to be successful in the industry. So it's great that we're able to offer that tool. And I'll refer to that theme, or I'll come back to that theme when I talk about the PWA a little later in this presentation. And again, in this most challenging of years, I think it's really important that we were able to adapt our 2020 conference to an online format. Now we're all used to that. We're in October, but when COVID hit in about March, early April, we were only weeks away from that conference. And so I think the work that Kevin McCourt and the team did to take us from an in-person meeting to an online meeting was phenomenal in the time that was available. We all take it for granted now, but in those months, it wasn't so easy to see how we were going to be able to pull that off. And just a reminder that the meetings are still going on, and next Thursday, there is a session on study management conduct, which you're still able to sign up for. On November the 5th, there is a session on workforce development as well. So if you haven't already registered for those, there's still time to do it. And of course, all the sessions are recorded. So if you still want to get to some of the older sessions for training purposes, they're still available to you. So one of our long-standing now relationships has been with Avoca around quality in clinical research. And we've continued to work with Avoca and run conferences alongside them, which actually allows us to demonstrate our ability to integrate the clinical trials ecospace. So combining sponsors, CROs, sites, and patients together. So I'm very pleased that that partnership is still carrying on. Maintaining the membership at nearly 12,000 people has been no mean feat. We do recognize, again, in such a challenging year as 2020, where you spend your dollars has really come under the microscope. So we appreciate you continuing to stay with us and to pay your membership dues. And I think the team under Jim has done a great job to try and make sure that we retain as many of our members as possible. Again, that's a theme I'll come back to in future. And the membership surveys that we run, and thank you to everybody that fills those out. You might think not another survey, but this is one that we really listen to. This is one we take a lot of, pay a lot of attention to and take a lot of time over. And one of the things you said to us was that you were finding it difficult sometimes to communicate with us. You told us that our website was not the best. So we've added a lot of resource. And again, in a difficult year financially, that wasn't easy to do. We've added a lot of resource to make sure that your queries are adequately served so that you get the service that you need when you contact the association. We're also working on upgrades to the website. I think we would have made a lot more progress with those this year, other than the financial strain we've been under. But certainly as we go through the rest of this year and next year, you'll see some big improvements there. And that's certainly what you said to us. That was things that you wanted us to be working on. And on the next slide, just one thing that's a little bit new for us this year, not something that we've done a lot of in the past. We've actually worked with some outside consultants to make our voice heard on the Hill. As I said, this has been a year when we've been more relevant than ever. So where do you get, or where do our lawmakers get feedback, information, insight into how our industry works and where the needs are? And so working with these consultants, we managed to get language about professional competency included in Senate reports. And that in turn led to specific language in Senate appropriation bills. So we're making our voice heard with our lawmakers, and I think that's crucially important to us. I'm also very pleased that this year, under Michael Causey, we launched ACRP-TV. I think that's been a huge success. There have now been 27 episodes so far. If you haven't watched any of them, I really do recommend that you do. They're 5-minute bite-sized chunks of information that I think you'll find very helpful and very intriguing. We've had 12,000 video views of these clips so far. And as one of Michael's guests, I can thoroughly recommend the experience. So if Michael asks you to participate, trust me, he'll make you look good. Or alternatively, you may have an idea for an ACRP TV segment that you want to suggest to Michael. I know he's always looking for ideas. So please reach out to Michael if you'd like to be involved in that. So let's move on to the PWA, and I've got about 4 slides here. I'm very proud of our PWA program, Partnerships in Workforce Advancement. You see the mission there on the screen, and it's never been, again, more important than it is today. And I commend Beth Harper, who leads this for us, for the work that she's done and the achievements that the group has made. We've added this year the FDA, the NIH, CISCRP and SCRS to the steering committee for the PWA, as well as sponsors such as Merck and Genentech. So this is beginning to get traction. It's beginning to get a lot of attention in the industry. And at this point in time, when you look there at the focus of the PWA, you see diversity as an example. Again, never been a more important time for us to be talking about diversity in clinical research. And we also launched this year the Find Your Element. This is coming back to how new people get into our industry and how we raise the profile of our industry amongst students, people who are looking at what their career options might be. So the Find Your Element is a way of reaching out to people who are casting around for what their first career move should be. And we launched this campaign in 5 media markets. New Hampshire, here in the Triangle, Minneapolis, Miami, Houston, and we're about to do 3 more, Atlanta, DC, and San Francisco. And we've had 140,000 students visit our website to tap into that resource. And on the next slide, this slide, you'll see that advertising. Again, very, very pleased with the success we've had with this. And I think this is all about ensuring the future health of our industry. So I talked about member retention, and on the next slide, you can see we've listed here the Site Sustainability Fund. Again, it's been a tough year for a lot of people. Dollars have been hard to come by. And so when the COVID crisis hit, we were very keen to try and do something for people who were furloughed. So through the Site Sustainability Fund, which we asked for donations, and some people gave very generously, thank you very much for that. We've been able to offer 75 memberships to staff that have been furloughed. It might be a small step, but when people have lost their jobs and are struggling for money, the last thing they want is to have to worry about membership fees for ACRP and maintaining their qualifications. So we're very pleased that we've been able to help out on that, and 75 people have benefited as a consequence. And finally, for the PWA, we've published a couple of white papers. We've talked very much about the gaps in the industry and how we fill those gaps. And I'm very pleased that these white papers have been very well received indeed by the industry. So again, thank you to the team that put all those together. So those are our highlights. It's been a year of adapting. It's been a difficult year in many ways. And what I want to do now is hand over to Barbara Slyby to talk about how the association, how the Academy has done this year and how they've adapted to the challenges of COVID-19. So Barbara, let me hand over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I'm not able to see you nor you see me, but due to technology, this is the way we will go forward today. I am going to share with you the Academy highlights for 2019 and 2020. But before I start, I'll tell you a little bit about myself because I'm actually very impressed with the work that ACRP has done. I started my clinical research career as a clinical research nutritionist. I then moved on to be a clinical research coordinator, a research instructor, and then a monitor. And I have to tell you, one of the most valuable experiences I had was when I was actually on the CCRC exam committee and then was its chair. As a volunteer, I actually feel like that my professional development and personal development was greatly enhanced by that involvement. So I actually encourage you to think about volunteering for the association. ACRP and the Academy have been the leader in recognizing the importance of competency since 1992, when research coordinators were certified, following shortly thereafter by CCRAs, CPIs, and in 2017, certificates of ACRP clinical professionals. In 2018, we launched our first subspecialty designation, the ACRP Project Manager, ACRP PM for short. Building upon its success, we launched our second subspecialty, medical device professional, ACRP MDP. ACRP will continue to create more subspecialties as careers and roles change within our membership. ACRP now offers remote testing to all candidates. Testing centers across the country closed as a result of the COVID-19, right as the spring testing window opened. ACRP was able to work with our testing partner to implement remote proctoring so that candidates can test from anywhere 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. ACRP also conducted a survey-based job analysis for CCRA, CRCs, and PIs. A job analysis is a study that documents the competency framework as well as describes the practice domains and important tasks and knowledge of a profession. These data gathered resulted in new detailed content outlines for the 3 exams, in addition to updating the exams. ACRP is a member of the Institute of Credentialing Excellence. Accreditation is part of which the credentialing program is evaluated against defined standards and is awarded recognition. It is our CCRA and CCRC exams retain accreditation through ICE's National Commission of Certifying Agencies. New eligibility requirements were updated, which allowed for better candidate experience during the online application process. Next slide, please. As many of you can testify, earning your designation demonstrates that you have taken ownership of your clinical research industry's premier certification. This achievement validates your clinical research knowledge, skills, and application. Because of your dedication and commitment to clinical research, the Academy continued certifying thousands of professions in clinical research in 2019. Last year, ACRP certified 1,200 initial candidates, and also 4,648 certificates maintained their designations. Digital badging has increased our visibility with ACRP certification programs. We hope that you're sharing your badge proudly. Next slide, please. The Academy currently has a little over 12,000 active certified individuals. A true testament to the impact of ACRP certification is now more than 34,000 individuals have been certified through ACRP historically. We thank all of our members for their support of the program and ask that you continue to help us spread the word about the importance of ACRP certification. I mentioned briefly the subspecialty updates. The current certifications now have the ability to test a specific knowledge with a subspecialty. By earning one or both of these subspecialties, professionals of all types show that they not only earned the flagship certification in clinical research through ACRP, but they've also demonstrated knowledge in project management and/or medical devices. To date, over 300 ACRP project managers and 62 medical device professionals have received that subspecialty. Next slide, please. Last year was also a significant one in terms of those reaching certification longevity milestones. A total of 1,726 milestones were reached, ranging from 5, 10, 15, 20, or 25 years of continued ACRP certification. Next slide. This is a listing of the Academy Board of Trustees. We have to acknowledge that this is a truly international committee. They were all volunteers, and we all share dedication and passion to promote and maintain high standards and best practices to demonstrate competency through valid and reliable credentialing. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to David Morin, the ACRP's treasurer, who will discuss ACRP's finances.
Thank you, Barbara. Good day, everybody. I'm Dave Morin, and I've been on the board since 2016, with this as my first year as treasurer. And prior to my board service, I was on the CPI committee and have been involved as a member for many years. I'm still a practicing internal medicine physician, but my primary role, and investigator, but my primary role is as the director of research for Holston Medical Group, which is a large physician-owned multi-specialty practice with over 60 locations in Tennessee, Virginia, and North Carolina. Now, the best way to sum up my years of experience in research is to share an anecdote from yesterday when one of my research coordinators wished me well in my presentation today for the AARP meeting. So I think that's how long I've been doing research. So it's been a long time. So let's get into the data. Now, these reports reflect updates based on a change to our new accounting firm earlier this year. They're called Cordia Partners, and we like them. As we switched to a new accounting firm, we also had a review of the finances for the years 2018 and 2019 by the auditing firm RSM. And I'm going to go over the updates beginning with 2018. At the time, we originally reported the value for change in net assets for operations as a profit of approximately $144,000 for those of you who may have attended that meeting. And we're excited about that. However, the review showed that the value was not accurate. And though our consolidated net assets remained positive for the year ending in 2018, as we'll see on slides, four or five slides from now, there was a decline in operational net assets of $220,000 for 2018. So keep in mind that we were still on a recovery path and still are from the big decline in 2015, as we see. And our strategy was and still is to continue to cut expenses wherever possible, but also to invest in processes to advance our mission. And that process is demonstrated financially in 2019, where we saw an increase in both revenue and expenses, but a more favorable increase in revenue. So in 2019, our losses in operational net assets actually improved. So they were less than they were the year before. And we posted a significant gain in non-operating items of $464,000, which was mostly from investments. This is the result of changing our investment firm a few years before and adopting a strategy to take advantage of very low interest rates to allow for prudent investing. That strategy worked, and we had a change in net assets from 2018 to 2019 of $660,000. So 2019 was a pretty good year. So let's go to the next slide. This is a breakdown of revenue and expenses by both the Academy and ACRP for 2019, which were grouped in the previous slide. The Academy showed a gain in operational net assets of $97,000, and ACRP showed a loss of $240,000. This accounts for the net loss in operations as reviewed in the prior slide of $144,000. However, since investments are made within ACRP, there was a gain in non-operating items of $463,000 and a change in net assets for both ACRP and the Academy combined of $320,000. Next slide. Further details of the consolidated statement for 2019 showed total liabilities and net assets of $5.45 million for ACRP and the Academy. Most of this was from investments and accounts receivable. On the revenue side, we are seeing the impact of investments in the new e-learning software, improvements to customer supports, upgrade to the website, the creation of subspecialty credentialing, and keeping our membership numbers stable. So we've done this even with minimal changes to membership fees. So we've only had a 7.5% increase in our membership fees over the past 10 years, and we're also believe we're offering more membership value. Next slide. This slide shows the changes in operational net assets from 2013 through 2015. The big drop in 2015 should be no surprise to those who've attended prior membership meetings. And Jim was hired as the new executive director at the end, I believe, of 2015, just prior to 2016. The goal of Jim, his great team, was to stabilize the financial situation with the support of the board and to put us back on track financially and to support our mission. As you can see, this was a huge challenge, but significant progress has occurred. Keep in mind that spending on operations is essential to supporting our mission and membership. So next slide. This slide demonstrates total net assets from 2013 to 2019. As you can see, our investment strategy has paid off very well over the last 3 years and was especially strong in 2017 and in 2019. And the next slide. Finally, what I'm going to discuss the 2020 financial highlights after the cancellation of our convention in Seattle, which was a major revenue hit for us, and then other challenges due to COVID. First, Jim and his team reforecasted the 2020 budget in April after we realized that the Seattle convention wasn't going to happen. They significantly cut expenses and reduced revenue projections. If we do not include the revenue provided through the Paycheck Protection Program, we will project a 2020 budget loss of $127,000, which is not bad considering the conference typically makes up as much as 30% of our annual revenue. The good news is that almost 10 months into the year, it looks like we will meet that budget and likely do even better. So thanks to our Executive Director, Jim Kermidas, and Chief Operating Officer, Kevin McCourt, they applied for the Paycheck Protection Program on the first day it was available and received the funds a few weeks later. That was a great work by them. We received $365,000 to keep ACRP going through the pandemic at a time with tremendous uncertainty. The good news is that Jim and Kevin have also applied for loan forgiveness at the first opportunity last month, and we've heard back that the loan is forgiven. We will not have to pay that back, which is actually fantastic news. So our investment account is currently at approximately $3.5 million. It did go below $3 million earlier in the year when the stock market declined due to COVID, but has since bounced back. We do still have a loan of $1.65 million, but that interest rate is so low that it makes sense to pay it off gradually so that we can continue to generate assets through our prudent investment strategy. All in all, our finances are in good shape. So now I'd like to turn it over to Erica Stevens, ACRP's incoming Vice Chair, to discuss plans for 2021. Hey, Erica.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you all for joining today as well. It's an exciting time for ACRP in the 2021 year ahead. I'm excited to participate this year as Vice Chair after many years on the board, serving in the capacity of a board trustee and then as the former finance lead as well and treasurer for the board. I've been with the association since 2008 and have served in a multitude of capacities, both on the conference planning committee and as the chair of the journal. So I'm delighted to be able to step into this role and supporting ACRP in 2021 as the incoming chair. What's ahead for ACRP in 2021 and forward are a lot of exciting things. First, as you are aware, we are upgrading and continuing to improve our customer and member capabilities. The first of which is to upgrade our current member database to ultimately improve customer experience. And so the issues that you may have experienced in the past with our online capabilities are continuing to be improved over time. We're also continuing to grow our customer service team. As Paul mentioned, you may have heard that we have recently distributed our member survey, and we were finding that the systems for members were not user-friendly. And so what came out of that was an increased effort to improving not only our association management system, but also to make our website transactions and activity more efficient and customer user-friendly. We've also increased the focus on customer service staff. We've added a call center for assistance with basic inquiries, and we continue to work on and take feedback around member service and input from those calls. What's also exciting, as you have been checking our websites or have been receiving emails regarding our planning for the annual meeting in Toronto in May of 2021. I, for one, am quite excited about the potential of still being able to hold that meeting in Toronto after many years of planning. It would be our first international conference in many, many years as a long-term member. We are hopeful that we will still be able to hold this conference in person in Toronto in May. And as we are continuing to plan, we will keep you posted of any updates in lieu of the current situation in the pandemic. The other pieces that are exciting for us is that we are continuing to expand our certification, and we are also continuing to provide opportunity for not only modules, but also moving to a simulation-based training as well. The other pieces that are exciting for us is that our continued focus on technology as a result of COVID, which many of you are experiencing in your own right. We are also continuing to explore those opportunities to increase our online training capabilities in the year ahead. Many of you may have already seen some of the simultaneous training for informed consent, and they are absolutely fantastic. If you've not explored those, I do encourage you to do so. The other things that are exciting for us as an organization is our continued emphasis and exploration of strategic partnerships that would actually grow our global presence. You heard me also mention the international conference of the first in many years, but also our international relationships as we move forward. What's exciting about this is that we will continue to not only grow globally, but also have great relationships with many organizations in other countries. This will align with our continued expansion of the Partners in Workforce Advancement, our PWA, and growing and increasing diversity of our workforce. Our premier program right now is the PWA, or the Partners in Workforce Advancement, and we're excited that we continue to grow momentum in this area and continue to sign partnerships for that regard. And now I'd like to turn it over to Jim Kermidas to discuss what's ahead for the PWA. Jim?
Thank you, Erica, and thank you to all of our board members and other volunteers that support ACRP. We really could not do this without you. We really appreciate all your help, all your time, your insights, your wisdom, again, we couldn't do it without you. I'd like to echo some of the comments that Paul made before I get started here. I can't think of a more interesting time in our industry than right now. You know, you're hearing things like Project Warp Speed. You know, what does that mean to the lay population? Phase 1, 2, and 3, things we take for granted. I told a story the other day. We had my wife's sister visiting, and we were watching the news, and they were talking about a product that's in phase 3. I can't remember if it was a therapeutic or a vaccine, but she said, how many phases are there? You know, and I just thought that's interesting because, you know, we just take for granted that everybody knows the things that we know about clinical development. And we are in a very unique position right now in time where we are absolutely, and not me, but I mean our membership is absolutely driving towards what we ultimately are all here for, which is better quality therapeutics for patients, better therapeutic options for medical professionals to use. So we should be very proud of the work that's going on, and spread the word about how important what we do is to society. So that being said, I'm going to talk briefly about the PWA and some of its overriding objectives. One is to gain industry alignment around what does that mean to have a high quality professional workforce. And also, you know, what are we doing to grow a more diverse workforce and also one that's sustainable over time. So I'm going to just kind of talk about some of the activities that we have going on in this space so that you're all aware. And if you'd like to volunteer or get involved, just, you know, let us know. You know how to reach us. So the first column here, grow and diversify the workforce. Paul touched on this, but we've been running advertising campaigns via the internet, so online social media types of outreach to increase the awareness of clinical research as a career for high school students and college students. And I always laugh, because anytime I get the opportunity to present to a live audience, I love to ask the question, did any of you go to college to be a clinical researcher? And seriously, I think in all the hundreds and hundreds of people that I've asked that question, I've had maybe 5 say, yes, I did go to college to be a clinical researcher. So the point is, most of the time when we talk about a clinical researcher to the lay population, they envision a person in a lab coat with a microscope or a beaker. They're thinking bench research, not clinical research. And so it's important for us to get that word out so that we can continue to have a sustainable pipeline of high talent coming through and entering into the clinical research space. And on top of that, we feel it's very, very important that as we're doing it, we find more diverse populations. The reason we feel that's important is, and again, COVID's brought this to light, we need to have minorities involved as patients in clinical trials or as volunteers in clinical trials. One of the ways to achieve that is to have a diverse workforce that can communicate effectively, understand their culture, and that builds a trusting relationship between the people at the site staff and the patients that we're trying to consent into the studies. So keep that in mind as we go forward. We want to grow a diverse workforce. Then of course, all right, so they find out about it, now what? Well, that's why we've got this Getting Started in Clinical Research resources. And we've put together recently a package of pretty basic types of training around being a clinical researcher that is now available, again, as a package. We had these things, but it was very difficult for people to find them all together. Now they are, and we're going to continue to develop those types of tools. And then finally, we haven't made much headway here, but we're looking to develop apprenticeship and internship programs. So as people get experience, as they get their education, they also have an opportunity to get experience. And that's very important, as we all know. Hands-on experience with a mentor, or working somewhere in a site, hopefully, or other places, maybe at a CRO, but getting the opportunity to actually see how clinical research works and understand it firsthand. All right, the next column is really about enhancing the competency of the existing workforce. So, and we've been doing this for a while. We worked with the Joint Task Force. We have taken a multi-stakeholder group and taken the Joint Task Force competency domains and then drilled them down to role-specific competencies. Now, this is important to try to get industry alignment around, because the less variance we have in how we onboard and train people, the less variance we're going to have in quality and performance at the sites as well as at sponsors and CROs. So we feel like this is a very important element. We continue to work on this, and all of these things are available for free on our website. So we're developing these, we're putting them out there so that people will use them. So please, if you haven't seen them, go to the website, download them, and use them within your organization. We've got training to support all those things and ultimately validating the competencies. And this is what the Academy does. I want to thank Barbara for her presentation, explaining the work that's gone on as it relates to certification. But our certification programs are also centered around the competencies. So again, we're trying to get industry alignment. You hear our catchphrase, better people equals better results. That's exactly where we're trying to go here. And then last but not least, ensuring the sustainability of the workforce. Now, Paul mentioned the online campaign that we did to raise funds to help educate or keep, allow study coordinators who have been furloughed, allow them, since they had extra time, to get some additional education. That was very successful. We'd like to continue that. So we will be looking at more of that going into next year. In addition, we want to be able to help people find jobs. So, coming out of the developing apprenticeship programs as people enter into the workforce, we'd like to be able to help people match opportunities with employers that are looking for folks with their backgrounds. And finally, having career paths. One of the key elements of developing through your career is having a well-established career path that you understand, so you know what you're striving for next. So you'll see more of that coming as we move forward. And last but not least, and it's not on the slide, but we also feel it's very important that we advocate for you. for clinical researchers and make sure that people understand the importance of what you do. I think we all understand it, and again, I thank you for what you do, but I'm not sure, again, the general public does, and we're again in a unique time where we have an opportunity to spread the word about the great work that you're all doing. With that, I will close and open it up to questions. Paul Evans and I will answer questions that are coming in, and Michael, I'll turn it over to you so you can tee everything up for everybody.
Okay, very good. Great presentation, everyone. Really good stuff. It's an inspiring time. It's a rough time, it's a crazy time, but it's inspiring at the same time. We've had a couple questions come in on some of the same topic. Let me address one of them before we get started. A few people have asked if this meeting is recorded. The answer is yes. And there's a link where you originally joined this meeting. After the meeting is over, if you go back to that, you'll see a link for recording availability. So you will be able to access the archive of this meeting. Okay, with that, Jim, let me turn to you for the first question. A few people have asked to hear more detail about ACRP's plans for virtual meetings, particularly if Toronto doesn't end up happening.
Oh, that's a great question. It's something we've been wrestling with, obviously. As you're probably aware, you can't even go to Canada right now if you're coming from the United States. So we've been working with the convention center. Kevin McCord has been working very closely with them to try to understand if we will be able to hold a face-to-face meeting there. As it stands right now, we're still planning to do that, but we are also developing contingency plans. So if we can't go to Toronto, we will be providing a series of tracks throughout the course of next year, similar to what we did this year, to provide CEUs and up-to-date information around clinical research and the type of topics that we usually have at the conference.
Okay, great. This is a question that came in kind of early in the session. It might be maybe for you, Jim, or yeah, I think this might be a Jim question. Someone is asking I guess, for more detail about the entry-level assessments. They're asking, are they for CRCs, for CRAs, and/or other positions?
It's really sort of a general assessment. It's not role specific. Now, what we're finding is most of the people that are taking that have been training to be either a CRA or a CRC. So it's really a general assessment. In other words, it's really not role specific. If somebody were to pass that and then go to work at a site, they'd have a lot to learn about how to work at that specific site. But what it does show us is they understand the fundamental competencies, they understand the fundamental principles of clinical research, and that's what we're shooting for here. We recognize that it's going to take them a couple years of on-the-job work experience as well as additional training to get to the point where they can be certified. But at this stage, we feel it's important that there's some type of validation that somebody has a fundamental understanding that they can come into the job and get hit the job running. They understand what's going on, so everything's not totally alien to them.
Excellent. This other question, I believe, also is for you, Jim, though Paul might want to weigh in as well. Someone's asking about the annual meeting next year, and they're remarking that, saying a face-to-face is so important, should we consider trying to do the meeting later in the year than we normally do?
Well, I can tell you that would be very, very difficult, and here's the reason why. We booked the Toronto conference back in 2016, I think, 2015. It was right after I got here. These type of convention centers, you have to book them years and years in advance. So it's unlikely that we could do something like that with such short notice. We do have a plan for 2022 where contracts are already signed for Florida. And we're looking at the year after that for where we may go. One of the things that may happen is if we can't do the conference in Toronto, that we postpone it a couple years and do it there a few years down the road. But it would be extremely difficult to do a conference that large in that short of a time frame with that little notice. Paul, you want to comment?
Yeah, if I may, Michael. Jim's absolutely right, of course, but Regional meetings, that's a different prospect because, you know, the one thing we're all missing by going virtual like this is the opportunity to network, meet people, meet old friends, meet new friends, and so on. So that's probably the one thing we're all screaming out for. I understand the question being later in the year because, of course, we all know where the vaccine development program is, and we're probably going to be in the midst of the COVID pandemic for at least the first half of 21 and maybe even longer. So I understand why the question is suggested later in the year. The regional meetings are a little bit easier to line up. So while I absolutely wouldn't commit Jim and the team to doing that, I think those might be a possible consideration. I absolutely agree with Jim that the national meeting is not going to happen, but regional ones are a possibility.
Yeah, agreed, Paul. Indeed, that is something we would consider, again, assuming that the vaccine's there. You know, it's interesting when you talk to these organizations now that hold these conferences, what they're telling you is they're going to put you in a room and they're going to put the tables, I forget the distance apart, you know, like 12 feet apart or something, and you can have 1 or 2 people sit there. I mean, you would be spread so far out across the room, and the networking opportunities, unfortunately, would again still be limited relative to what we're accustomed to. So hopefully, you know, there will be a vaccine or some type of treatment where people feel comfortable getting back into large groups, and we can actually get everyone together at some regional conferences.
That's certainly a hopeful goal. We've had a member helpfully remind us that there are lovely convention facilities available in South Dakota. So just FYI. No, if you were wondering, put that in the mix. We don't seem to have any other questions in at the moment. I guess we could give a second to see if any others have come in. We've had a few questions with specific things that, like, they wanted links to websites and stuff, which we can share after the meeting. One person was asking about where they could find some of the white papers and things, so we can add that to information later and send that to people individually. But otherwise, okay, well, here's one. All right, this just in. For those of us who need to recertify in 2021, will there be more frequent free or low-cost opportunities to earn credits through ACRP? Many other opportunities to earn these education credits through other institutions have not been readily available during COVID, or will there be a change to the required education credits needed for recertification? I think I got that question right.
Well, I can tell you there won't be a change in the number of hours required. It's 24 over a 2-year period, so 12 per year. As far as ways to achieve those, you know, obviously we have a lot of different resources. If you're a member, we have e-learning modules that are free. The webinars are free. But, you know, there is a small fee for members for those credit hours because of the processing fees, basically, that we need to incur. The other way you can get them, though, is, you know, on the job types of things. I know there's a certain number of hours you can get doing that are free. And I hope that answers your question. I don't know what other opportunities might be, other than to let you know that we will indeed be having conference replays. Those are still available. Those hours count. We'll have, obviously, our conference in 2021. Those hours will count. So hopefully that'll meet your needs.
Fantastic. We don't appear to have any other questions come in, so unless we get some in the next few seconds, let me quickly take an opportunity to plug ACRP TV, if I could, and thank you, Paul and Jim, for both being on it in the past. We've actually posted one today about the ACRP Fellowship Program, so check that out. And as Paul said, I would love your ideas and thoughts for content, subject matter experts, always looking for new voices and new ideas. So please do, if you haven't already, please do participate in ACRP TV and our blogs and everything. We're so thankful for all of you for all you're doing, and by attending this meeting, you're showing your interest as well, which is very encouraging. Let me see, another question's come in. I'm going to put my glasses on to get this one right. Any information available to provide to business administrators to help convince them the value of the certification and to consider paying the costs of certification membership? So I don't, Jim, do you want to take that one perhaps?
Sure, brilliant question. By the way, I just got texted by the director of certification to let me know that in-house training is accepted for maintenance for your extra hours, as well as continued involvement. So things like investigator meetings, those types of activities, which usually are free. So, but to answer that question, Michael, we do have data currently that shows that study coordinators as well as PIs that are certified perform better in regards to enrollment, as well as fewer protocol deviations. That information, again, is available on our website. So if people want to download that, they can. But I should also tell you, we had a conversation yesterday. It's not etched in stone yet, but we're hoping to be working with Tufts University to do an analysis on the impact of certification on those same type of topics. You know, how do you get more efficient, more effective workflow out of certified and higher quality, I should add, out of certified personnel versus non-certified. We think that having Tufts publish that type of data will be very, very helpful, you know, as an academic institution. So more to come on that, but yeah, we do have some data, and again, it's available. That information is available on the website.
I'd like to add too, also, that we are in the publications department at ACRP. Our final white paper for the year is most likely going to be on that topic. We're just beginning to work on it now, so hopefully that will come together in the next few months. And in fact, if anybody on this call, on this meeting, has any thoughts or input about that topic and has, say, evidence of the value of certification, I'd love to hear from you to write about that as well and contribute to that white paper. Otherwise, Paul and Jim, unless you guys would like to make some final comments, I think we have fielded all the questions. Paul, do you want to maybe, let's go, final thoughts?
Yeah, Michael, somebody's reminded us on the message board, you can also get training through the chapters, who provide sometimes free, sometimes low-cost training. That's a great way of keeping your certification up. And while I'm on that topic, I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you very much to all of the people that support the chapters, and particularly to the people who run those chapters, all the people that give their hard-earned time to help keep those chapters moving forward. We've been trying this year to try and provide more and more support to the chapters, and we'll continue to do that. But all the people who give their time to support us through the chapters, we're really extremely grateful to you. And if you're not a member of a chapter, then please consider joining one. And I think those opportunities, because they're smaller meetings, are more likely to give us networking before a big meeting would. So you might find a route back into getting out of the house and office via the chapters.
Okay, fantastic. I think it's just so exciting how this meeting has come together with a higher amount of participation than usual. The optimist in me says we're going to see each other next year in Toronto, so I'm looking forward to that. I want to thank everyone for their presentation today and for the questions and the enthusiasm of you members who really fuel everything that we do. So on behalf of ACRP, I want to thank everyone for joining us, and we will see you again soon. Take care.